Hi, Jewish Mom, Shavua Tov. So I want to talk about something today that is completely and totally theoretical, that does not apply to any of you watching this, or to me, or to any Jewish mother. Tiredness, being tired. Yeah, I'm joking. Okay, so I think that all of us go through periods when, like, we're sort of in a low period, we're feeling tired. It could be related to, some sort of biological process that we're going through. Like, maybe we're nursing, maybe we just had a baby, maybe we're about to have a baby, maybe we're in the beginning of pregnancy, maybe we're just, like, I don't know, working and balancing that with being a mom, or just being a mom. And it can just be tiring, or having, like, an especially challenging kid. So I think, like, we all go through periods when we're just feeling, even just, like, waking up one day and just being like, I'm tired. I know something that I think I'm sure I've said it before, because it's such an important concept that I learned from my teacher, Rabbi Aryeh Niven. But he says that so often, like, in our lives, when we think that we're having, like, a big problem, like, let's say we're having, a problem with our marriage, or a problem with our kids, or like our house, or our lives, or we're struggling with anxiety, or we're struggling with depression, or whatever, a lot of times the problem is that your gas tank is just on empty. That instead of, like, going to the therapist and going to the homeopath and finding a psychologist for your son who's acting up, you actually need to look inside and actually just, like, get some rest and and fill up your own gas tank. And lots of times, like, when you do that, when you are not as tired, when you fill up your own gas tank, then miraculously all of your problems disappear. I found this to be true on multiple occasions. So I just want to talk with you a bit about thinking about tiredness and overcoming tiredness, and what we can do, like, in our lives as mothers. So this is, of course, I guess, like, the ideal would be, go on a vacation, for, like, a week, for 2 weeks. But kids have a way of just sort of, like, being around, and, they're not really so eager for their mothers to just, like, disappear to the Caribbean for a week or whatever we need to recharge our batteries. So we need to find a way to do that with our kids around. It's not always so easy. So the first thing I think that's really, really crucial is taking naps. And I really don't know how mothers survive without it. I personally take 2 naps a day. I wake up early to send my older kids off to school, and then I have to take my younger kids to Gan. So for me, getting kids back and forth, it's often like a 3-hour process. And it's very, I usually go to sleep later than I should. And so what I do is, after I drop my little kids off, I come back and I, like, lie down for half an hour. And that's, like, I just cannot function. I cannot have a serious conversation. I cannot do anything until I have that half an hour rest. Then again, in the afternoon, my kids come home at 4:30 from school, my older kids. So then I have my little kids at home. My little kids come home at 1:30 from Gan, but like, with them playing around me, then I rest. I rest again for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and it makes a world of difference. It really enables me to function. Another thing I want to mention that I found that's really helpful is I found an iron. There's something. I personally have low iron, and I think a lot of mothers do. And really, no matter what I eat, doesn't really change it. I always have low iron. So I want to highly recommend. There's a kind of liquid iron with other various nutrients in it. It's put out. It's called Flora Vital in Hebrew. Like, they call it Flora Vital. It's spelled Floravital. Floravital, like vital, Flora Vital. And it's a liquid iron, and I take it every day. And it's relatively expensive. I found it online for $35 for a month's supply. In Israel, you can get it less expensive, but for about 80 shekels for a month's supply. But I highly recommend it. I feel like it really gives me koach, like, it really gives me energy at those times when I'm feeling like my energy is not as high as it should be. So another thing I want to mention, I read something really fascinating. What actually really inspired this pep talk is something really, I thought, really interesting that I read this week in Family First. Sarah Hannah Radcliffe has a really great column in Family First every week, and I read it religiously. She always has something interesting to say. And she suggested this week, she was talking about this. She was talking about the situation of mothers who are tired and what you can do. And you can't like escape to the Caribbean for a week, as I said. So what do you do? Like, how do you have a vacation while you're taking care of your kids at home? So she suggests something. She suggests something really interesting. She says, just like take a day or two when you are just doing minimal, when you are just doing your absolute minimum mothering. You know, your kids need to be fed, that's true. Your kids need to be, you know, taken to nursery school, that's true. Your kids need to be, you know, like you need to help them tie their shoes, that's true. What's the absolute minimum that you can do for your kids? You know, usually we do with our kids, like there's a certain amount of there's like we have to give them baths, then we have to do, you know, we'll take them shopping for clothing for Rosh Hashanah, and we'll you know, make them like a hot lunch when they come home, and we'll do homework with them, and we'll do, but like let's say just take a day or two when you're feeling really low. Just take a day or two to say, okay, Emma's on vacation. I'm here and I'm on vacation. I'm doing the absolute minimum. And be nice to your kids and be friendly. And if they talk to you, say, oh, yeah, okay, good. You know, whatever. They need help, and we need help, then you help them. But other than that, don't put in any more effort than you absolutely have to. And you're like sitting on the sofa and you're like reading a magazine, or you're, you know, and you're sort of there and on vacation. You're reading a magazine with a cup of tea, and your kids are playing around you, and you are feeling in your heart like, okay, I am off duty. You know, you're friendly and you're nice and you're there, but you in your heart, you are recharging your batteries. I thought that was really interesting. And it reminded me of something that I learned about, probably about a decade ago from my teacher, her Rabbini Imima Mizrahi. And I thought this was really interesting. She was talking about the minimum requirements of a mother. Like what is really required of a mother. And I think that like a lot of mothers, like we put so much pressure on ourselves. You know, we have to take our kids to the zoo, and we have to take our kids on outings, and we have to do, you know, be playing on the floor with them. And these things are all very nice. It is nice to do those things. But in terms of the absolute minimum, like what is actually required of us? So Rabbi Imima said 3 things. I was really surprised by this. She says, what is actually required of us? 1, make sure that when your child leaves the house, that he or she looks good. You know, that the hair is brushed nicely, that their clothing is clean, that they're, you know, that they're dressed in like decent, nice clothing, that they have like, you know, shoes that aren't torn. That when this child walks into school or gone, that your child looks like a clean, respectable kid. Okay, that's responsibility number 1. The second thing is food. Is that you are responsible for feeding your children yummy food. Okay, moving on. 3, is that you are responsible. If you remember the midwives in Egypt, Shifra and Pua, like what would they do when the baby was born? I think Pua, so she would go, her name comes from that she would go like Pua, Pua, Pua to the babies. And that's our third responsibility, is to sort of make nice, comforting sounds. It doesn't really matter what we say so much, like, oh, good to see you. Nice, good, you did that? Oh, great, wonderful. Being sort of like this positive, nurturing influence, as opposed to sometimes we mothers, like we can get very sort of wordy, like, you know, like, if only you would do this, then you would understand, and sort of giving them sort of like ethical lectures on the ethics of sibling rivalry, I don't know, whatever. And she's like, no, just saying, what is your minimum requirement as a mother? It's less than that. It's just sort of like to be a general, nurturing, feeding, clothing, sort of nurturing, pua kind of presence in your child's life. And I don't think that Rabbi Imima thinks that this is like the ultimate, that this is like where mothering ends. But I think it does give us a bit of thought, especially like when you're going through a low period, like what is the absolute minimum required of me? Like if I'm having a low period and I really don't have the energy, you know, to be taking them to the playground every day, and to be, you know, taking my kids on outings, different places, and to be, you know, doing this and doing that, and you know, so what is the absolute minimum required? And it's this. It's just this. It's like that just to be like, just to be providing a general positive atmosphere for our kids. So I want to bless all future moms that, you know, the Rosh Hashanah is coming up and the Chagim. It's an intense period for us moms. And it's important that we pace ourselves. It's important that it's important that as the Chagim come up, that we be sort of like keeping our eyes open for when on the gas tank. You know, what they call it, the gas tank monitor, like that indicator. That then when you see it like getting low, you see the gas is getting low, and the gas is getting lower, and the gas is getting lower. To take that time and do what you need to do to rest and to nurture yourself. And when you do that, when you take that time out to be a good mother and to take care of yourself, to take care of the mother, it ends up nurturing your entire family. I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing, amazing week.